Hi, good morning, everyone. How are you?
Morning, Leticia.
Good morning, Craig and Ignacio. Nice to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. For the team, my name is Leticia Proctor, and I am the Senior Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Revenue Management for Donohoe Hospitality Services. I am honored to be the moderator for the session implementing a streamlined and integrated revenue management strategy and a competitive hospitality landscape. So I'm honored to have Craig and Ignacio on the panel with me today. And I'd like for you to kind of introduce yourselves, if you don't mind. And Craig, I'll start with you. Can you give us some background about who you are, your title, your company, as well as, one of those silver linings that you have gleaned from the pandemic and how things are going right now, 20 months in?
Sure. Thank you, Leticia. Thanks for the opportunity. As Leticia mentioned, my name is Craig Carbonniere. I'm a certified hospitality digital marketer. I work for Milestone Internet Marketing. I think for me, it's funny because I think there are so many different silver linings. I think for our industry, we've all come together truly as a community, more so than I've ever seen in my 15 years within hospitality. And then personally, not to share too much, but we were blessed with a daughter during the pandemic. So I'm busy on a number of fronts.
Oh, no, that's fantastic, Greg. Craig, congratulations to you and your family.
Thank you.
Ignacio, how about you? Tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, and some takeaways from the pandemic. Positive takeaways.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ignacio Gomez, and I represent Pacha Group as a global hospitality and MICE sales director. I think my top positive point that has come out of the crisis is definitely the capacity to reinvent ourselves. And within our industry, I love to see that people stopped fearing changes. Then personally, I think it was a nice time to calm down and look at your position, your future, and kind of redraw your life. So super positive actually about it.
No, gentlemen, I could not agree more. I have to tell you, during the pandemic, I've been in the hospitality space for many years. And during the pandemic, I really learned more about self-care. And I really learned more about taking time to just kind of go out and smell the trees and smell the flowers, see the trees, and really kind of take it all in, and allowing time to kind of de-stress. If you had asked me this question prior to the pandemic, I would have exerted myself for everyone first, and then myself, maybe not so much. And now I'm equally important as everyone else, and I love it. So, thank you for that. There was definitely some trying times during the pandemic, but I will say that there were also some great takeaways, some lessons learned, some great improvements. So I could not agree with you gentlemen more. So thank you. So again, regarding this session, the first thing I want to talk about is the big elephant in the room. So we've endured the pandemic now for 20 months. And I'd like for you to step me through, what was your bottom during this crisis? And what did you do to kind of adapt and survive during this pandemic to kind of take you next level as we go through kind of we're still kind of in the during, we're not yet in the post environment of the pandemic. So Ignacio, I'll start with you.
From a personal point of view, the first weeks of the lockdown were super uncertain. I think we all had the situation. But in my case, I'm always quite positive, and I quickly jumped into readapting and finding ways to stay energized and positive. I think it was key for me to have a proper and organized agenda. So I could have every day my little gaps for sport, meditation, studying, connecting with the family, and of course working. But having that full agenda written and actually going through it helped me to actually miss time through the day. which
Right.
was great.
Now tell me from a professional realm, Ignacio, what did that look like for you in the sense of how you adapted with the Pacha group? And where are you based now? Where are you, Ignacio?
I am now based in Ibiza, and then, well, professionally for me, that was the time of the change, because through the pandemic, I moved from a property being a general manager to now being a global sales director for the Pacha group. I am based in Ibiza. Both places have been in Ibiza. So actually, I have really enjoyed, because when you make this change, also, it's not just that you need to readapt your daily tasks. Your brain need to change. And in my case, I love to be back in the sales world. So it was a great move for me, actually.
Good for you. Craig, tell me about you and your space from a revenue management lens. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think, I won't reflect on the bottom. I think we all experience that. I do recall, though, having lunch with the head of revenue management for the Intercontinental in Los Angeles downtown, where I'm based. And he told me, I'm hearing wind of all these cancellations for groups. And I think it was the very next day, it was lockdown in Southern California. So I think what I was inspired by and really encouraged is our team then looked at it as, okay, how do we help our industry, right? We know we're going to at some point need to recover. But hopefully we can hold our ground in the meantime. So, we've, if anyone's sitting on our webinars, our crisis recovery and growth framework, spent a lot of time. It's actually won awards. And so working with partners to help work them through that, that's really how we adapted, right? We knew it was coming and we responded. I think that's the biggest takeaway.
No, that's great to hear from both of you. Interesting perspectives. I guess to say from my lens, so I've been in the hospitality space for almost 30 years, and my company and my role for many years has been to oversee top line revenue. So when you're looking at how do you drive your top line before you get the expenses in, I'm responsible for sales, marketing, and revenue management. So I think the bottom for me, looking at, just the industry as a whole, was seeing hotels having to close and seeing tenured associates or legacy associates having to be furloughed. So for me, in our industry, it's not just about tangible items that you have in a sense of, just hitting those top line numbers. It's also about the experience. It's also about the associates. So for me, it was really racking my mind and my brain around, what do I need to do to kind of help drive top line in an environment where there is low demand or virtually no demand, to kind of reset and kind of rechart the course in the environment. And one thing I quickly learned to be, pliable was that, in low demand, you don't really have a chance to do it over. If you don't get it and you don't capture that customer, it's far and few in between to get another customer in low demand, if sometimes no demand. So really trying to be thoughtful in the sense of, what is the objective? What do we want to do? And how do we kind of get there? So that to me, and Ignacio was looking at, the impact on the internal associates and how do I still drive us through this uncharted territory. So it's very interesting in the sense of, how to develop strategies in a competitive landscape, including a pandemic. To me, you cannot, I'm using competitive and challenging interchangeably in this session. So with that being said, Craig, I want to ask you, what kind of emerging trends, Milestone, you help with website development. Your company does a lot to give us that site inspection, especially in an environment where you are no longer able to kind of do a site inspection. Walk me through what your organization has done to kind of help with that sales and revenue management strategy to get us out of this space, or to be a little bit more inclusive during the pandemic environment.
So one of the takeaways, Leticia, you touched on, Ignacio touched on, the one of the opportunities we have now is to be flexible and to change, right? So properties that were historically corporate, houses are now housing, a variety of leisure guests, families, singles, couples, right? So I think what was critical, and we saw this early on, it was really encouraging, is seeing hotels come out and being extremely communicative, right? Getting the right messaging in front of guests that, hey, we're open and, you know, we have these amenities to suit your needs. Right. So to see hotels doing that and working so closely with them to really highlight that on their websites, as you mentioned, Leticia, thanks for the plug. You know, that's been work that we continue to do. And it's going to be critical for hotels coming out of this pandemic.
Excellent. Ignacio, how about you?
Well, I could say that there is something in hospitality that we hate. That is when someone says, "This is the way we've always done it," and you know, game over. This is gone. The revenue managers, they have been playing they have been playing out of their comfort zone now for a while, which is great because a lot of people now had to readapt, no, and change their styles. And it doesn't mean that you have to take every single trend you see, but at least we have been all, you know, like trying to see what everyone was doing, which made us open our minds. So I think this is for me the trend now is to be open to change and to readapt your style and actually do not think that for the next 10 years you have the perfect now strategy, because things might change.
No, I could not agree with both of you even more. I would tell you from my lens, I had to give everything a hard look. So if in the past, you know, we may have developed a website and did photos, and maybe those photos had a shelf life of 5 years, I had to go back and reset and say, you know what, who's traveling in this environment right now? And how do I ensure our hotels our hotels kind of attract the end traveler? How do I ensure that if leisure is traveling, how do I ensure that a business travel hotel feels like a leisure hotel in this environment where typically you're designed for the corporate traveler? Or how do I look at, you know, photos differently? How do I look at when people are traveling, who do they travel with? Their pets. You know, we've had hotels that had not really accepted pets ever, that we had to reset that. And just, we had to work with, you know, the Milestones and everyone else to kind of reset. How do we make ourselves user-friendly for the end user? So, you know, we want you to be able to travel with your dog. We want you to be able to feel as if you do get someplace and you have to quarantine or whatever that looks like, you can. So then it also, Ignacio, I know you can speak to this, the food and beverage offerings were more important now. So even if there's more profit in the rooms division, we look to how do we develop an inclusive experience authentically and genuinely, consistently during a pandemic where maybe it was an amenity, but not necessarily a major amenity for us. So the website was important, photos were important, flexibility in the sense of allowing pets where maybe we didn't allow pets, you know, looking at who's traveling. If it's a leisure traveler, how do I ensure parking is available? How do I make sure that's an easy, you know, parking, your family, food? If we don't have the restaurant, how do I bring room service to you? Again, my role is to monetize every aspect of top line revenue. How do I make that experience great, but also front of mind, your safety? Cleanliness was a key. So ensuring that everything's done, that we really work with the brands and put that message out to make sure that when you do travel, your safety is important to us. Cleanliness is important to us. So that was a huge reset. Not that we weren't doing it, but we had to make sure that it was front of mind. So it was completely different because, again, low demand. Low demand in some instances when we close hotels, very little demand, no demand. So that was navigating through the forest, again, in those uncharted territories, and knowing that the weight of the industry, you know, we all had to move together, restaurants, airlines, all that. We had to move together to kind of get, you know, travelers feeling comfortable at their destination. So that definitely was something that we had to look at in a sense of leisure travel. So thank you. So Craig, have you done a lot with the food and beverage offerings? You know, have you seen any different trends or with entertainment and other amenities as jurisdictions and municipalities began to reopen, how did you feel, how did you navigate that with your customer like us, Ignacio and I, to kind of make that work? What did you see?
Sure, and I'm sure Ignacio has a lot more experience to draw from, but I know specifically in this area, right, what today's hotel guest is looking for is an experience, right, which is surprising given that, hey, they've been at home for the last 6 to 12 months, right? Anything being outside is probably experience enough, right? But hotels are really highlighting, okay, what's available at the property, what's open, what outlets are open, is a spa open, is a pool open, right? Those type of things, while we thought they were petty prior to the pandemic, were critical when guests were choosing the right property to stay at. You've mentioned a few nuggets, Leticia, which I just wanted to highlight, right? Do you accept pets? Hey, I have a car. I'm a local guest, right? Where do I park? And so seeing the collaboration between, marketing, sales, revenue management, food and beverage to really package and merchandise some of that communication, that's a trend that I don't think is going anywhere anytime soon. And I'm looking forward to continuing.
No, I could not agree more. I hope we have the perfect blend between former and present, with that pent up leisure demand that we saw, and those travelers that may not have traveled a lot. I don't know, my parents didn't travel as much, and now they're traveling all the time when they can, and they will probably continue that because of that pent up demand during the pandemic. But Ignacio, talk to me about you in the sense of, what that meant for entertainment. Pacha Group has a lot of different verticals there, food and beverage, all of that. What did that look like for you in the sense of how you're able to kind of ebb and flow to meet the current climate of demand?
For us, it's a very complicated question because we do run entertainment, and to be honest with you, even our pubs are still closed. So there is one side of our heart that we still have not been able to run it. But on the other side, what we've seen something amazing in the hotels, which is like in the past, our guests, we were saying, that they look for the experience, but that they would use the hotel as somewhere to sleep with a few amenities, with a few things, your spa, your pool. Well, that was nice, but there was something out of the hotel. This year, what we've seen is that people would actually want to stay at the hotel, and it's like, give me more things because I want to stay here. I want to, spend my money here, and just give me options. So in our case, we were amazed and we loved it. Hopefully it will stay longer because we had to come with a huge offer to entertain our guests through the day. And actually the response was amazing. Like everyone was staying at the hotels, and I mean, there was not nightlife. And it's not that the people wanted to dance or to get crazy through the day, but they wanted to also to enjoy the day in a different way. So we've been able actually to offer some kind of entertainment through the day and feel it and see how the people was really loving it. So from the first day we opened the places where people was like, okay, I'm out of my house, whatever you do, I'm happy with, to now give me 24 hours experience. It's been an amazing trip in within some months. But as Craig was saying, watch out, because the future, it's like this. Now we need to 360 degrees look at the guest experience, and we're not selling rooms anymore. We are selling the whole 24 hours.
Yes. No, that's great, Ignacio. I could not agree more. In this environment, it's so multi-pronged in the sense of, on one lens, you want to make sure the guest has the best experience, right? So I rely on both of you. Even when I have traveled, I want, to your point, Ignacio, a holistic approach. I want options. I want the ability to, if I decide to stay in my room, what does that mean for me? But if I decide to go out, what does that mean for me? If I'm going to travel, what does that experience look like? So it's a thoughtful approach. So we want to make sure we have that buttoned up. Again, demand is not where it was in 2019, but it is improving compared to 2020. But on the other end is that overarching business aspect, which is, this session is how do we drive top line revenues? How do we drive profitability where it flows to the bottom line, right? So, and also still offer those same things that guests have come to expect in this environment, but yet knowing that there's low demand. So how are you efficient enough to get that going? So it is about being pliable. It is about ensuring that right person, right price, right day, right time, all of that, and the right profitability to make it continue to work. So for me, it was looking at also, how do we do business? How are we maximizing our numbers? And is it, what is the cost of acquisition when we do this? So for me, it was kind of going back to basics. And for every owner, looking at what their overarching objective is. What do they need? What do they want that owner? Because we are a for-profit industry, even though people, that's the reality of it. What does the owner want? And then what can I do to get them there? So it's also looking at how do we perform on the star reports? What does that compare to our budget? And what do the trends tell me? And so all those things kind of immersed together help me understand how do we drive the strategy. So one thing I will say was a big aha in the sense of just looking at, performance. There's so many ways to determine performance. Is it performance to 2019? Is it performance to 2000? Is it performance to, we kind of tossed 2020, unfortunately, but looking at month over month, how are we doing month over month? How are we doing versus 2019? How are we doing week over week? Sometimes how are we doing daily? So when people ask me, how do you measure all these metrics? It's everything. It's everything, because in one day, it could change the trajectory of the strategy, the revenue strategy. So you have to be in the business, in the data every day, all day, until we climb out of the pandemic. So, Craig, with that being said, what does that look like for you in the sense of 2022? What would you say would be a pressing revenue strategy, a trend as we kind of come out of the pandemic? What do you say would be something that we should consider kind of going forward?
And there's so many things that happened. I think in revenue management, digital marketing, sales during the pandemic, a lot of innovation, right? So there's a lot of things to benefit from. If I were to give one nugget, right, we touched on it already here, is the overall guest experience. I'd encourage you to think how that looks before the guest arrives, right? And what's their experience? How are you found? How are you presented, right? What's the information that you're making available to guests, right? And put yourself in your guest shoes. You'll find that you do the best consulting, the best advising for your teams when you think about both offline and online. Anyways, I can talk for hours about it.
No, I think that's a great nugget. I absolutely, hands down, especially for those tenured associates that have been with the property for many years. Sometimes you just have to have fresh eyes, a fresh look. Again, to the point, the guest experience, and that should be the barometer for how we do business. So, with that being said, I'm going to turn to you, Ignacio. When we think about speaking about innovation, Craig, Ignacio, what do you think are some of the top innovations and trends in hotel revenue management that we can expect in 2022? What does that look like? What do you think that looks like?
Well, if we talk about trends, I would say, like, for example, the rates that offer flexibility and or free cancellation will continue to be quite popular for future dates. Also, in terms of regional domestic travel, I think we could expect to be quite prevalent than international travel, at least for the next year. And something that I still, this one I don't like it because I would like to change it, but business travel still will be the last one to pick up, no? So I think this trend, as I said, I would like to change it, but this is what I'm seeing right now. We're picking up with business travel, but it's going slow. So it will explode at some point in 2022. But right now on the books we don't have it yet. And in terms of innovations,
I agree with that. And then Craig, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing from your lens, but government is still not traveling like we needed to. Corporate's not there. Midweek travel's not there. We're seeing a little bit of group come back, but not a ton. Some convention centers have reopened just based on municipalities and just local jurisdictions. So to your point, it's going to be a climb out of 2022, but definitely better than what we saw in 2020. And the reason why I don't dismiss 2020, but sometimes 2020 can give a false positive, because right now there's improvement, but demand was so low in 20 that when you start seeing these positive changes in 2021, you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's great. But the reality is that it's a false positive. So that's why we kind of look at 2019. So for me, when I think about performance overall, I look at, as far as just a strategy, how I define the strategy from revenue management would be, I look at the STAR report from the hotel space, and I'm sure they indicate this with other parts of the hospitality industry, but I also look at, for example, Demand 360 is really big for us. We look at the different channels that kind of are booking, but I also look at pace reports, and I look at rate trends, and what do I see in my comp set, which is an indicator. And by doing that and future looking, we went from booking in 3 days or less, the majority of our business, say 55, 60%, 3 days or less, which is indicative to a leisure traveler, to booking 7 days out. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes if you have a myopic approach and you're just focused on the 7 days because you're so used to being in this 20-month environment, you may miss the fact that people are booking 6 weeks out. So by the time you get into in the month for the month, you're not able to drive revenue because you're not fencing your rates in advance. You have to look at not only who's booking, but when they're booking. So, and who's booking, when they're booking, and what they're booking, which ties into all of us. So I need the website to show what's happening. I need the brand or the independent rate strategy to make sure we book. And then I also need the food and beverage and entertainment. So then when they get there, they have something to do. So I can tell you that we did see, to the day we saw when the booking pace started to extend into 45 days. So at one point we were 3 days, then we were 7 days, then we were 15 days, and then we were 45 days. And so the strategy was raise your rates for that 45-day, 60-day window. And as we get in the month for the month, we can identify where we need the opportunities filled and then adjust rates accordingly. But at least we're not in the month knowing that we will never be able to raise rate if demand improves because we left the gate open way too far in advance. So those are things where we would look at channel reports and all that daily to make sure that we get the win. So with that being said, Craig, I want to ask you, if there's one thing that hotels could do to increase bookings, what would you say?
So we've done a ton of research on this topic here at Milestone. And I think, there was, and this wasn't in fact caused by the pandemic, funny enough, but it certainly accelerated where, guests were seeking more information about hotels, such as their policies, whether pet cancellation, amenities, right? What they have available, pool, spa, restaurants. And so, revisit, because most of us did this, but revisit how that information is displayed specifically on Google, right? So Google made a series of updates. If you're curious of the entire list, just let me know, I'll send it your way. One of which being adding different attributes to your Google My Business profile, which our founder always comments, it's your new website homepage, right, is Google. Because realistically, all of your information's there, a guest can consume it. So revisit that. Are you benefiting from some of those things, right? And because we know that that information leads to conversions, leads to bookings. And if anyone's curious, I have the research to show for it. So it's time well spent for sure. Excellent,
excellent. I see that we had a question that came up about sustainability. That too is true in itself. In this pandemic environment, even when it comes to housekeeping and clean the rooms and the towels and refillable bottles and just recycling, all of that, it's important to have that footprint on your website so that when people come in, they know what to expect. Even when I have traveled during the pandemic, do I want my room cleaned every day? No. But do I want it not cleaned the entire time I'm here? No. Maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe I want it cleaned every 3 days. Maybe I want my towels just refreshed. So, but knowing that in advance, again, website, entertainment, food and beverage, all that works for us in a sense of the revenue strategy, because again, it's about monetizing top line revenue. So if I just focus on rooms only, then I'm doing the company a disservice. I have to look at pet fees. I have to look at parking revenue. I have to look at even if there is no food and beverage offering, what can I do? Can we do heat and serve in our markets? Can we do grab and goes? What can we do? What are our customers telling us? Reading the reviews. So Ignacio, looking forward for you, what do you think scenarios look like when we budget in 2022? What are some of the things that we should, how many scenarios should we budget in 2022?
What a fantastic question at this time of the year. Well, I think for the last month, 2 months, I've heard all kind of different theories about it. And definitely the debate will stay alive, not just now when you close your budget, it will stay for the next year, just having a look at, okay, that was the right thing. So if there is something we've learned during the previous 18 months, is actually to let me add another one, reforecast. And actually, it's a great advantage because we don't fear now to reforecast and to get used to change and readapt ourselves to the needs of the moment. So in regards to the budget 2022, due to uncertainty, I could have a minimum of 2 scenarios. The one we can consider the real one, based on a mix on then depends on you, 2018, 19, the avoided, well, on your 21 numbers. This each revenue manager will have their own tools, but obviously there must be always a plan B, because this is what we learned. No, I don't want to have it. Okay, but if you have a plan B, a plan C, now it will not take you time to do it because we learned that is easy to do and our brain is used to this. So get advantage of it and have it ready just in case. Right. We never know what's happening with the pandemic. So in my case, I'm going to have plan B and plan C. But I think this is something that we should get used to, changes.
No, you know what, Ignacio, that's such a great segue. I will tell you, in addition to everything having a plan A, B, and C, let's just talk about the labor. So labor, for example, right now, we can have the best website, the best hotel, the best everything. But if the staff is not on board and the staff is not fully trained and they're not immersed in the goal, and if they don't understand how their role affects the overall outcome, and that one reservation call or that one front desk experience, or all of that, how it ties into a core customer base, then it kind of falls apart at the bottom. So it's super important that for us to remember that we have external associates or customers and internal customers. So we have to make sure the team, everyone, not just the managers, but the team, those town hall meetings when we can, even Zoom meetings, it's impactful for associates, because again, we are in the guest experience business. When they come to our hotels, they're not leaving with a pair of shoes or a pair of pants, they're leaving with memories. And so if our team is not on board with making sure we deliver the best version and vision of that guest experience, then we're always starting over from square one. So it's important for us to not lose sight of that, but also to let our team members know why their role is so important. So I'll give an example. I get reports from properties all day, and I get revenue management reports during the night audit shift. It's not uncommon for me to email them and thank them for sending me the reports, because they're working at 4 o'clock in the morning. They think no one reads these reports. I read them. So even though I'm a senior vice president, I take time to thank them. And I know their names. So when I get there and I see them, I thank them because I can't do it by myself. So it's super important that we understand what motivates our team as well. With that being said, we're kind of coming down to the last few moments, but Craig, if you were to give one piece of advice, kind of post-pandemic, kind of climbing out of this, we talked about the strategies, kind of looking at the objective, looking at where we are and what we're doing. What would you give someone kind of going forward post-pandemic? What does that look like?
Sure. So, we touched on it today. There's obviously a lot of things hotels can do to accelerate their recovery. And I wouldn't assume that every single one is right for every property. So really doing your due diligence with your agencies, with your partners, with your teams to really define what that strategy looks like going forward. I will touch on too, Leticia, you'd mentioned it. I see Zana mentioning it too in the comments. You know, it's critical that we continue this collaboration, right?
Yes.
And it shouldn't just be revenue management working in a silo, digital marketing working in a silo, sales, right? It should truly be a collaboration. And I'd encourage you, and this is as a advisor in digital marketing, right? Speak to your front desk staff, speak to your guest services agents, reservation agents. They're getting questions from your guests on a daily basis. And how can you benefit from, you know, taking a stance and answering some of those questions, whether it be through your marketing, through your revenue strategies, right? Adapting to the needs of your guests. I think it's a critical piece.
No, thank you for that. I know we've got about 5 minutes left. Ignacio, I wanted to ask you, what is a nugget or a takeaway for someone kind of going forward? And I'll follow you.
I think my points for everyone would be jump out of the box, run away from it, open your eyes to all new trends and readapt, relearn, and start writing the pages of the new today. So Craig just said, connect with your teams, love it. Connect with the guest, you must, and see what's happening in the world and try to bring this into your business, whether it's sales, whether it's something else. But if you want to really readapt to the new world, listen and be with it.
Yes, I cannot agree more. If I could add to that, I would say 2 things. Number 1, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So when this when the new level of activity happens, your team should be engaged and not stuck in an environment of low demand where they're not able to kind of reset when demand becomes in droves. 1, but on the human side, you know, it's important for all of us to kind of just do checks on our associates. You know, COVID fatigue is real. You know, we never thought we'd be in this environment for 20 months. So do COVID checks, because as we provide service, we have to make sure our associates are, you know, well rested, you know, well engaged, well informed, feeling appreciated, so that we can be authentic and genuine in the service that we deliver. It's not robotic at best. So just keeping the team informed, letting them know what the strategy is, and also being knowing that the situation is fluid. So I may say we're going to drive rate today, and tomorrow that didn't happen. We have to drive occupancy today. Oh, that's not working. Let's drive food and beverage. Let's look at pet fees and all of that. So those are things that we just have to be flexible, but be accepting during this environment. And that will take this industry that we all know and love to the next level, because we've done it for so many years. We'll continue to do this. Thank you all so much for your time. I know that we are 3 minutes out. Do we have any questions that we can answer for anyone at this time? We kind of answered them through the session, but is there anything else we want to talk about, or any questions? And Zaina, thank you so much. If I'm pronouncing your name correctly, thank you for your comments. Yes, we agree that regular staff meetings, and again, not complaining. Who wants a negative environment? We want to promote positive and engaging feedback, because we're a conduit to our guests. So absolutely. And thank you all. On behalf of International Hospitality Institute and the Global Hospitality Summit, we thank you all, Craig and Ignacio. It's been a pleasure. And again, my name is Leticia Proctor. It's been a great time to moderate the session for everyone. And we look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.